Digimon Adventure 02 released in the year 2000 and is a direct continuation of the first series. The story takes place 3 years after the original series ended, in which we follow a new group of Digidestined, many of whom are new faces, whilst also joined by a couple of familiar faces of the past. In the years gone, the digital world has been invaded by a new enemy, but this enemy happens to be a human, referring to himself as the Digimon Emperor. He acts as the initial catalyst which leads to the formation of the new group Digidestined, but the Digimon Emperor is only the beginning of a much bigger and darker story, which plays out throughout this entire series. In this video I will cover the entire series as a whole. As always, for those of you short on time, I have included timestamps in the description box below. Now if you haven't watched this series already, then I must warn you there will be spoilers from here on forth. On that note, let's kick things off by going through some of the characters. This is Davis. Davis is the leader of the new group of Digidestined. Similar to Tai, he is an avid soccer fan and excels at playing the game. He is classmates with Kari, whom he has a massive crush on. Davis is pompous, ignorant and downright incompetent at times, but he makes up for this with his unwavering loyalty towards his friends and his sheer determination. Davis was first introduced to Digimon during the Myotismon arc from the original series, where he and his family were held hostage at Tokyo Big Sight. His Digimon partner is Vmon. This is Yoli. She is the eldest of the new edition of kids. Yoli acts as somewhat of a successor to Izzy's role within this new group. She is very sincere in the way she always wears her heart on her sleeve, and as a result, when things don't pan out as she expects, her confidence is left momentarily shattered. Just as Sora did, she acts as a maternal figure within the group. Yoli's Digimon partner is Hawkmon. You have Cody, the youngest in the group. Cody's in a similar position as TK found himself in the first series, that is being the youngest. The difference with Cody is that he is wise beyond his years. Having been raised by his grandfather, he has lived a sheltered life, and so his experience of the vast different types of personalities out there is very limited. Regardless of how mature he may seem, Cody is still just a child after all, and so has a very black and white view of the world. Throughout his journey, he realizes that human beings are not just black and white creatures and much more nuanced, but that cannot always be put into simple boxes of good and bad. His Digimon partner is Armadillomon. And the final new addition we have is Ken. As this video progresses, you'll soon get to know much more about Ken as we delve into the story of this second installment of the anime. All I will say for now is that Ken is an integral part of the story and has one of the best fleshed out arcs of both series. We have returning from the original series and now much older TK and Kari, whom are both now around the same age as their brothers were in the 1999 show. Given the experience they gained from their first journey, TK and Kari bring with them a vast amount of knowledge and wisdom around Digimon and the digital world. Returning also are the Digidestined of the original series. Now in their teens, they play a supporting role, especially early on, in mentoring and guiding the newer, less experienced kids. The first episode begins with some wild Digimon being chased by dark rings and being whipped sadistically by the Digimon Emperor. The rings eventually attach themselves to the Digimon, placing them under the Emperor's control. We also see Gatomon running from the rings, which it manages to narrowly evade, losing its tail ring in the process. We then pan back to the real world where we see TK, who's now living in Odaiba with his mother, and is seen leaving his apartment to go to school. On his way to the elevator, he bumps into Yoli and Cody, who also live in the same apartment complex as him. TK introduces himself and they all make their way to school together. TK joins Kari's class, a class that Davis is also in. Davis immediately gets jealous as he sees TK and Kari talking. After class, Davis rudely approaches both of them, demanding to know what TK's relationship with Kari is, much to TK's amusement, which only further ticks Davis off. Whilst all this is happening, Tai receives an SOS from Agumon, as it's being chased by those dark rings from earlier, leading Tai to visit the digital world to help his partner. Agumon explains to Tai how he's unable to digivolve to his champion level, and Gatomon explains how it lost its holy tail ring, which has halved its power, so its power is closer to that of a rookie Digimon than it is a champion level Digimon. The reason for this is the Digimon Emperor wields a dark Digivice in which prevents the Digidestined's partner Digimon in digivolving naturally, providing they are in the proximity of his dark towers, which he has spread throughout the digital world. Tai sends out a distress email to everyone's inbox, which Yoli happens to read. Realizing Tai shares the same surname as Kari, she goes to inform her of Tai's email. Izzy also makes his way to the school computer room alongside Kari, TK, Davis, Yoli and Cody. In the digital world, Tai interacts with an armored Digi-Egg, much different to the Digi-Eggs which we are familiar with, as this one has a completely different look to it and has ingrained on it the symbol of courage. Upon touching the egg, 3 beams of light emit from it which exit out of Izzy's computer and into the hands of Davis, Yoli and Cody. Each light forms into a Digivice similar to that of the one the Digimon Emperor has. These Digivices are called D3s, which are newer versions of the old Digidestined's Digivices. Kari is in a rush to help her brother, and so enters the virtual digital gate open on Izzy's computer by projecting her Digivice towards it, enabling her to travel to the digital world. TK and Davis follow in tow. When Davis interacts with the armored Digi-Egg from earlier, a Digimon appears from it, which is Vmon. Shortly thereafter, they are attacked by Monochromon, which is under the control of the Emperor. Vmon advises Davis to call out a chant in order to activate the egg, which will allow Vmon to digivolve. Davis does so, and Vmon is able to digivolve into Flamedramon. Flamedramon is able to free Monochromon from the influence of the Dark Ring by destroying it, with the Digimon Emperor watching on as he laments how he underestimated them. The show comes up with a clever way around the constraints put upon regular Digivolution as a consequence of the story they are trying to tell with the Emperor. So the Digivolution that Vmon underwent is unique. In fact, Flamedramon is not even Vmon's true champion form. Vmon's true champion form is X-Vmon, but what is going on here? Let me explain, but before I do, if you happen to be enjoying this video and would like to see more content like this, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, as it will help grow this small community of anime fans we have here at this channel. Okay, back to what's going on with the Digivolution. Vmon underwent an armored Digivolution, an ancient method of Digivolution which is achieved by an elemental armor Digi-Egg, unlike regular Digivolution, which just requires a Digivice on its own. There are 4 sovereign Digimon whom ensure all checks and balances remain in equilibrium within the digital world in order to prevent the digital world falling into disarray. The sovereign Digimon, including Azulangmon, who's mentioned later on in the story, all created the elemental Digi-Eggs as a way to allow Digivolution, given the Dark Towers enacted around the digital world were preventing natural Digivolution from occurring. Over the course of the next few episodes, the other Digidestined and their partners achieve their armored Digivolutions, most achieving 2 different forms. And they also go on to discover that the Dark Rings gain power from the Dark Towers nearby, so the kids sort out to start destroying the towers. Kari also has an episode dedicated to her in which she starts having strange dreams. Much to Gatamon's concern, Kari refuses to talk about these bad dreams, and TK quickly catches on that something is not right with her. Kari drifts off in class and finds herself in an ocean surrounded by darkness. More odd events happen, with Kari having a hallucination of a vision of her younger self, and turns around to see a menacing Digimon leading to her screaming in fear. She confides in TK and how she's scared she will be taken away by this Digimon. TK reassures her that he won't let that happen. Kari finds herself back in this dark world, and the gang starts to look for her, realizing that she's in a different dimension. She wanders into a cave in which she hears voices calling out to her. The voices are Scubamon, who go on to tell her that her light has allowed them to be free. However, the cave itself starts to disintegrate. An Airdramon starts to circle the area, and Scubamon informs Kari that he serves the Digimon Emperor and attacks her. TK, Patamon and Gatomon make their way to the beach and are able to save Kari. Gatomon realizes that there is a dark tower nearby in the area, and after it is destroyed, Gatomon receives a surge of energy which allows it to digivolve into Androwoman and defeat Airdramon, as well as destroy the dark spiral controlling Scubamon. Scubamon's bodies begin to shift form, and all cry out to Kari to become their queen. With Androwoman preventing them from getting any closer, they go on to tell Kari that they thought they needed her help in revolting against their master, but soon realized they had been wrong. They warn her that their master would come for her. This episode is one of the creepy episodes of both series, as some of the lore behind it is definitely not appropriate for kid viewers. Let's continue on with the story, as this is not the last time we will hear of this dark ocean. The Digimon Emperor turns out to be none other than Ken, whom studies at the same school as the kids. Ken is known as a child prodigy and meets Davis at a soccer game, whom is oblivious to his true nature. During their game, Davis tackles and injures Ken's ankle. Ken praises Davis on his strength, but deep down is vying for revenge. When the kids enter the digital world again, Ken seeks to exact his revenge, demanding that Davis humiliates himself, otherwise he will have Deltamon eat the other Digidestined he has hostage. However, this turns out to be a ruse, as the other kids turn up and inform Davis of the Emperor's bluff. Seeing the same ankle injury on the Emperor as he gave Ken, Davis deduces that Ken is in fact the Emperor. Ken goes on to confirm this fact. With his cover now being blown, Ken makes the decision to put his plan into full gear and stay in the digital world. Now Ken has 2 aims. One is to capture Agumon and digivolve it into Metal Greymon under his control. He is successful in capturing Agumon and is able to easily control it as Greymon, but his first attempt to digivolve it further did not yield the desired result. Just as when Tai did, forcing Greymon to digivolve resulted in Skull Greymon. This also proves to Ken that a single Dark Ring is not powerful enough to control an ultimate level Digimon, and so designs a Spiral Ring, which consists of 3 rings combined. Ken is successful in eventually getting Greymon to digivolve into a corrupted version of Metal Greymon, which is fully under his control. Tai, Matt, Davis and the others are successful in freeing Metal Greymon under Ken's control, when Vmon is able to armor digivolve into Raidramon using the armor Digi-Egg of Friendship. Ken wasn't done yet. He did have a second plan after all. He had his second plan brewing in the background the whole time. He was creating a new species of Digimon. which has many of the attributes of the enemies the previous Digidestined defeated. Ken is successful in creating a new Digimon called Chimeramon, but due to it having the DNA of Devimon in it, Ken is unable to control Chimeramon, and so the Digidestined must band together to destroy it. Ken's subordinate, Wormmon, who has to a fault remained loyal to Ken even though Ken verbally and physically would abuse it, finally makes the decision to help the Digidestined take down Chimeramon, as his master is starting to descend into insanity. Wormmon takes Davis to the Golden Armor Digi-Egg of Miracles, which allows Vmon to Armor Digivolve into Magnamon. Unlike the previous Armor Digivolutions, which were closer in power to that of a champion level Digimon, this Golden Armor Digivolution is closer to the power of that of an Ultimate Digimon. A battle between Magnamon and Chimeramon ensues, but Chimeramon is eventually able to get the upper hand in their battle. Wormmon then sacrifices its life force to provide Magnamon the much needed power to destroy Chimeramon, which it does. The Digimon Emperor starts to go through stages of grief following his defeat, vowing to start from the beginning to achieve his goals, whilst confirming to the Digidestined that he perceives the digital world and Digimon as just being part of a game. After the kids go on to tell him how Digimon are real beings with feelings just like humans, along with the fact that Wormmon is slowly dying, Ken finally breaks down, shedding the Emperor persona off himself and apologizes to Wormmon, who was in fact his partner all along. Ken embraces Wormmon, apologizing for how he treated it. The Crest of Kindness appears before Ken, confirming his crest affinity. Crests are not a thing for the new generation of Digidestined, but Ken received his Digivice many years prior, closer to the period of the original show, hence why he has his own crest. Wormmon goes on to die in Ken's arm, with Ken walking off into the desert as the other children are calling out to him. The English dub does a disservice to Davis here, as it further cements his idiocy for the viewer, as he asks Ken to join the Digidestined, versus the original version. Davis tells Ken to go be with his family, as they reported him across the country as being lost due to how long it's been since he last returned to the real world. Before we continue on with the story, let's cover some backstory and how Ken became the Emperor in the first place, as eventually this all comes full circle in the final showdown versus the final villain of the series. As a young child, Ken grew up with his older brother Sam. Now Sam was a prodigy, and their parents showered Sam with much more attention. This left Ken feeling jealous and unattended to, leading to the thought crossing Ken's mind of how much better his life would be if Sam just dies. That's just some kids for you. They will say all sorts of crazy stuff, not thinking anything would come of it. Sam, on the other hand, loved his little brother, and on one night Ken showed off his skills at blowing bubbles, with Sam encouraging Ken on how good he is at it, and how he is better at blowing bubbles than he is. Ken also in that moment couldn't help but have a sense of admiration towards his older brother. One day a Digivice emerges from Sam's computer. Sam isn't sure what it is, so tells Ken not to mess with it, at least until he's established what the Digivice is and what the risks it may pose are. After all, Sam is Ken's big brother, and so wanted to make sure that the Digivice didn't pose any risk to his little brother before they mess with it. Sam locks the Digivice away into his drawer. Ken, being the curious child that he is, can't help himself but to open the drawer and take a look at the Digivice. The Digivice soon pulls Ken into the digital world via Sam's computer. This is where Ken meets his partner Wormmon and a Digidestined by the name of Rio. They both must battle Millenniummon, and after attaining victory, Millenniummon emits dark spores around the area, in which one enters Ken through the back of his neck. Ken falls ill and remains in the digital world for around 3 weeks, with Wormmon and Rio both tending to him. Once he gets back to Earth, it was as though he never left. Many speculate that the reason time did not move forward is due to some of the effects Millenniummon's powers, now residing in Ken via the spore, was having on the movement of time. Sam returns to his room, fuming to find out that Ken had opened the drawer and handled the Digivice. After all, Sam did tell him not to mess with it until he knows that it's not dangerous. Ken, frustrated and upset that he was scolded, again wishes for Sam to just die. But unfortunately this time around, Sam actually does die. Later on that same day, Sam is hit and killed by a car. Ken completely withdraws within himself, as he feels immense guilt, believing that he caused Sam's death by his wish. At Sam's funeral, an odd, shady looking man by the name of Oikawa identifies a spore which infests Ken's body. Oikawa sends Ken an email advising him to enter the digital world, which Ken does. Ken is actually taken to the Dark World, the same Dark World where Karu found herself in, which contains the Dark Ocean. It's a world in which has the power to bring dark thoughts to life, and twist those thoughts even more. Ken dips his Digivice into the Dark Ocean, and it transforms into a black D3 Digivice, which gains much more additional abilities, such as preventing natural Digivolution and being able to create dark towers and rings in order to control Digimon. From this point on, Ken assumes the role as Digimon Emperor, initially using it as a means of escapism for his grief, but over time the darkspawn within him continues to corrupt him to a point in which he becomes the evil sadist we first come to know him as. I will touch back on Oikawa later and provide a full backstory, as he is heavily connected with Cody on a personal level and to the series endgame. He is the mastermind behind everything that is happening in this series. Okay, so back to the story. With now the Digimon Emperor having been defeated, and Ken finally ridding himself of the persona, the partner Digimon are able to resume normal Digivolution, and so over a period of episodes, Vmon, Hawkmon and Armadillomon are all able to achieve their true champion forms. We also get an episode dedicated to Ken in which pieces of his backstory is explained and shown, and he is again reunited with Wormmon, who hatches from a Digi-Egg as Leafmon. Ken having now dedicated his life to being the kind version of himself that Wormmon admired, as well as atoning for his misdeeds by aiming to undo the damage he caused the digital world. A grey-haired woman watches Ken from afar, going on to enter his room at night, voicing her disappointment on how he wasted his potential. The Digidestined are helping restore Primary Village, a nursery located in the digital world for infant Digimon to be raised. The kids' Digimon are unable to digivolve, which makes them suspect that there may be a control tower nearby. They suspect whether it may be Ken, and Cody sighs how he can never forgive Ken for everything he has done. Whilst at work, Cody is attacked by Thundermon. Armadillomon digivolves into his true champion form Ankylomon and is able to fend off Thundermon. However, Thundermon manages to get close enough to attack Cody, who is saved by Stingmon. Stingmon is Wormmon's champion form, and to Cody's confusion it turns out Ken just saved him. The episode ends with the kids realizing there is no active control spy in the area, and Cody is still completely confused as to why Ken saved him. Following this event, Davis goes on to tell his friends how he doesn't think Ken is bad, with only TK agreeing with him. Cody is still mad at Ken. Davis makes attempts to bring Ken into the fort, but Ken politely declines. Yoli eventually comes around to the idea that Ken is not all that bad either. Back in the digital world, there are hundreds of control towers left, and the woman from the earlier episode inserts a needle into a tower, creating a Digimon Goldmon out of it, which Patmon witnesses. Ken and Stingmon continue their solo mission in destroying the control towers, and are forced to destroy a Sneemon that attacks them. Mimi sends out a distress signal to the kids asking for help as Goldmon is attempting to destroy a dam. Davis and the others soon realise that Goldmon will not stop, and Davis reluctantly voices that they may need to destroy it. The kids, especially Yoli and Cody, are against this, but Ken and Stingmon soon arrive and start to battle it. Patamon shouts out how Goldmon is not a real Digimon, a statement which TK concurs, that the Thundermon from the previous episode was also fake. Hawkmon digivolves into his champion form Aquilomon and aids Stingmon in destroying the fake Digimon. Ken apologizes to the group and walks off, not responding to Davis's plea for him to join them. The group are then seen helping rebuild a bridge, with Yoli worrying that the woman from earlier which creates Digimon out of control spies will go after Ken. It turns out that the woman is in fact a Digimon by the name of Arukenimon, seemingly looking for ways to create chaos and disorder in the digital world. Arukenimon creates Minotaurumon that attacks the kids at the bridge in an attempt to bring the bridge down. The kids collectively are able to destroy Minotaurumon after working together. Davis voices how they could do with Ken and Stingmon's help in rebuilding the bridge, but Cody is dead set against this. After a long day of destroying control towers, Ken decides to call it a day and go home. He's shocked to see Arukenimon on his computer. He orders it to stop trying to contact him. Arukenimon explains to Ken how the control spies were not his idea, which is how it is able to have such control over them. Izzy contacts the kids to let them know of an energy disturbance around the Emperor's base. Izzy explains how Ken's crest is the only thing that can hold off the dark energy the base is emitting. Ken as well as the rest of the gang are at the scene, but so is Arukenimon, who transforms a dozen control towers into a single ultimate level Digimon, Okuomon. The kids' champion level Digimon are no match for it. Ken is resolved to fix all the problems on his own which he believed he caused. Davis, fed up with Ken, smacks some sense into him that they're all friends and they must work together. Both Ken and Davis's Digivices flash, and ex-Vmon and Stingmon DNA digivolve into Pyildramon. As Pyildramon battles Okuomon, Davis and Ken and the others make their way to the base, and Ken is able to slot his crest into the base, finally stabilizing it. They find the source of the base's power, which is emitting dark energy, similar to what Ken experienced in the Dark Ocean, deducing that it is a gateway to the Dark Ocean itself. Pyildramon destroys Okuomon and the base, and the kids return home, without Ken as he needs time to process things, as he still doesn't feel worthy to be their friend. Cody also still holds reservations about Ken. In the real world, the kids go to Izzy's place to query the Digivolution that they just witnessed, and Izzy explains the concept of DNA Digivolution to the kids using Omnimon as an example, in which Yoli comments on how she witnessed that battle too. Izzy also explains how the original 8 Digidestined re-entered the digital world to give up their crest in order to create a protective veil over it, allowing the digital world to flourish, but in return their Digimon lost the ability to digivolve into their ultimate forms and higher. Next, the kids must battle with Arukenimon. However, not directly, but via her controlling some of the partner's Digimon like Stingmon via her flute. Ken realizes that the flute is able to control insect-type Digimon. The other kids are in hiding as they're being hunted by dozens of Sneemon. Arukenimon sends Dokugomon after the kids, and with teamwork they all find a way to de-escalate the situation, now focusing their aim towards Arukenimon, who has gone on to show her true Digimon form. Pyildramon makes swift work of Arukenimon, and she goes on to state how her goal is to simply destroy the digital world, shortly thereafter being saved by Mummimon, her partner of sorts. Cody starts to finally warm up to Ken, having worked together to get out of this jam, and given it was Ken's idea that led to that result, Cody thanks Ken and advises him that he is indeed indebted to him. Okay, now we have reached the midpoint, and up until this point the kids have always had an answer to whatever jam they found themselves in, but that stops from episode 30, as Arukenimon comes up with the idea to convert 100 control spires into a single powerful Digimon. She does this in plain view of the kids, and from those 100 converted control spires emerges Black Wall Greymon, a mega level Digimon. Black Wall Greymon is just as powerful as the Wall Greymon many of us have come to know, but its temperament is nothing like the original. Black Wall Greymon absolutely decimates the Digidestined and their partner Digimon, with not even Pyldramon holding a candle to it. This is the first time the kids realise there's nothing they can do against their foe. Kari screams out for everyone to run for their lives, but it's too late by then, and Black Wall Greymon levels the area with this Terror Destroyer attack, rendering the kids and their partner Digimon unconscious. Arukenimon and Mummymon immediately find out the hard truth that Black Wall Greymon is far more sentient than the other Digimon she had created. Black Wall Greymon proclaims it answers to no one, and it will travel around the digital world in order to meet and battle a worthy opponent. The following episode, Black Wall Greymon is aimlessly wandering around the Dark Forest, with the wild Digimon around the area hiding in terror. The kids are trying to come up with a way to take on Black Wall Greymon, but they realise they don't have enough Digimon close to its level to take it on, as the only ultimate level Digimon they have is Pyldramon. They agree that the best way forward would be for the rest of the team's Digimon to DNA Digivolve also. Kari feels sympathy towards Black Wall Greymon as she cites how lonely it must be feeling. This takes Yoli off guard completely, as she doesn't get how Kari can be so considering of what she deems to be an evil Digimon. Davis applauds Kari's sensitivity and berates Yoli, citing how she wouldn't understand due to her bluntness. Remember at the start of the video how I mentioned Yoli wears her heart on her sleeve, but when her convictions are put into doubt, she begins to crumble and question herself, in which she questions her ability to understand other people and Digimon's feelings as Kari does. The kids arrive in the Dark Forest where Black Wall Greymon is nowhere to be found. Gatomon realises that this is the same forest that he lost his tail ring in, and so Davis comes up with the idea to look for the ring. The group spread out with Kari and Yoli pairing together. Ken and Wormmon arrive to help out, but both are at unease, soon finding that the Dark Ocean is calling to Ken as he screams in pain. Kari overhears his screams and rushes to his side. They manage to calm Ken down, who goes on to explain to them about the Dark Ocean, much to Kari's horror and Yoli's disbelief. Although Yoli doesn't really believe Ken, she displays to him that she does as to not upset him. The trio now travel together, soon realising that they are lost. Yoli begins to panic as Davis runs straight through her. Kari and Ken are both out of sorts, as the dark world they have been absorbed into is calling to them, whilst Yoli remains completely oblivious. Yoli becomes frustrated with the two believing that they are ignoring her and so goes off on her own, only to soon realise how selfish she is being and decides to return to the two. Yoli sees what seems to be Gatomon's ring, but the rock beneath her foot breaks, causing her to fall. Kari is able to make it on time to grab hold of Yoli, but the Dark Ocean starts to call for Ken and Kari, placing them both in pain, resulting in both Kari and Yoli falling. They both regain consciousness and Hakmon tries to digivolve to get them out of there but is unable to. This puts Yoli in a hysterical panic, resulting in Kari slapping her to snap her out of it. Kari goes on to open up to Yoli how she is envious of her, as unlike herself, Yoli is always open about her feelings and is able to wear her heart on her sleeve. Kari goes on to tell her how she always keeps her true feelings to herself as to not burden anybody else, and she suspects that this is why the Dark World is trying to take hold of her, as this caging up of her feelings is what makes her vulnerable to the Dark World in the first place. As Kari starts to lose her composure in fear that the creatures that inhabit the world are going to try and pull her in again, Arukenimon and Mummymon send a large Blossommon to attack the kids. Kari is hysterically crying as the darkness is trying to invade her mind. Yoli does not know what to do as Kari is despondent. Yoli in desperation slaps Kari, which does snap her out of it, assuring her that the darkness will never get her and they will work together to defeat it. Both Gatomon and Aquilamon DNA digivolve into Sylphimon and make quick work of Blossommon. The entire group reunite and Kari reassures TK that she won't be fighting the darkness anymore on her own and she has Yoli to fight the darkness with. Black Wall Greymon is searching for an opponent and stumbles upon Agumon. Black Wall Greymon sits with Agumon and has a heart-to-heart of sorts. Agumon is not able to provide Black Wall Greymon with the answers it's looking for regarding the meaning of its life, but it appreciated Agumon's company nonetheless. Arukenimon and Mummymon are trying to destroy the Destiny Stones around the digital world. These stones bring harmony and balance around the digital world, and when the Destiny Stones are destroyed, great catastrophes will soon ensue upon the digital world. Arukenimon creates a Nightmon which attacks one of the stones, and Black Wall Greymon is afflicted with pain. It arrives at the scene where it destroys Nightmon and the source of its pain, the Destiny Stone itself. There's quite a lot left to get through, so I'm going to speed through the last half of the series in order to get to the final battle. Blackwall Greymon sorts out more Destiny Stones to destroy, having zeroed in on one. TK tries to hold Blackwall Greymon off using Angemon, but Angemon is no match for it. The Destiny Stone emits energy which allows Angemon to digivolve into Magna Angemon, who you know if you watch the original series is OP as hell. Although managing to do better against Blackwall Greymon, it is unsuccessful in protecting the stone from Blackwall Greymon's Terror Destroyer attack. From the stone emerges a shadow of a large Digimon known as the Zulongmon, which I mentioned earlier as one of the Sovereign Digimon. Blackwall Greymon immediately recognises a Zulongmon's strength and vows to seek it out and battle it. Cody is worried about TK, who's behaving more and more erratic. Cody seeks Matt's advice, whom explains TK's concerns about the destruction of the Destiny Stones, reminds him of when Angemon had to sacrifice itself to fend off the powers of darkness, and TK fears that the power of darkness may return due to the destruction of the Destiny Stones, which is why TK detests Blackwall Greymon so much and what it's doing. Blackwall Greymon destroys another Destiny Stone, not listening to reason. This makes the barrier between the digital world and real world become unstable, allowing Digimon to pass through into the real world. The following episode, Angemon and Akidamon are able to DNA digivolve into Shakuramon to help fend off Blackwall Greymon in being able to destroy the last Destiny Stone. All three DNA digivolved ultimates fare much better against Blackwall Greymon, but eventually are overwhelmed. The Digidestins plan to move the Destiny Stone using their D3s, but from the stone emerges a Zulongmon. A Zulongmon berates Blackwall Greymon for its idiocy and goes on to explain how the spires that make up Blackwall Greymon's being restrict a Zulongmon's power. A Zulongmon explains to Blackwall Greymon that its life does have meaning. Blackwall Greymon deduces that its life's meaning is to be loathed and hated and walks off into the forest. The kids rejoice having been able to save the last Destiny Stone and Blackwall Greymon seemingly having given up chasing after the stone. The kids are invited by Ken over to his for Christmas get together. At Matt's concert, wild Digimon appear along with the control spire. Izzy soon finds out multiple digital gates have opened around the world, and Davis sees on the news multiple control spires have erected across the country. The kids travel around the country destroying control spires. A young Jedi appears with one of Zulongmon's paws, which it gifted, enabling the Digidestined Digimon to naturally digivolve beyond their champion form. The core also allows for Pyldramon to digivolve into its mega form, Imperialdramon Dragon Mode, providing the kids a means to travel around the world using its speed of sound. The new and old Digidestined go off in pairs to destroy control towers across the world and return the wild Digimon back to the digital world. Whilst doing so, they meet many other Digidestined across the world. The kids start to hear news of multiple missing children. Ken seems to have an inkling of this from his own past, but can't seem to piece together the memories quite yet. In the meantime, Daemon, a Mega Level Digimon, enters the real world with his subordinates consisting of Marine Devimon, Lady Devimon and Skull Satamon, all which are powerful Ultimate Level Digimon. After battling Lady Devimon and Marine Devimon, who both flee from battle, the OG and the new Digidestined band together to take on Skull Satamon. Although an Ultimate Level Digimon, it proves to be far too fast and powerful for all the collective Ultimate Level partner Digimon to take on. Even Magna Angemon struggles with its speed. After digivolving, Imperialdramon is left paralysed when Skull Satamon corrupts its data. The OG Digidestined partners all de-digivolve, as Izzy concludes that the cause of this is that they're not used to spending so much time in the real world. Barring Gatomon and Patamon, the original Digidestined agree to send their partners back to the digital world, but before they leave, the Digimon provides some of their energy to Imperialdramon, which is then able to change forms into its fighter mode. Now having 2 hands and 2 feet, Imperialdramon fighter mode has the agility it needs to undertake in combat, with the Digi-Analyzer stating how its power has multiplied 3x. How accurate this is, who knows, as it's stated in the dub, which isn't always the most accurate. Nonetheless, Imperialdramon Fighter Mode is able to easily destroy Skull Satamon, and given that it was a real Digimon, the kids cannot help but feel a little sad, but know the only way forward was to destroy it. Daemon appears demanding that Ken accompany it to the Dark World as it needs the spore inside him. Arukenimon intervenes, holding dozens of lost kids in the back of a van, whom are seemingly now brainwashed. Arukenimon emotionally blackmails Ken with the kids and gets him to voluntarily climb into the van. Ken meets Arukenimon and Mummimon's boss, Oikawa, and recalls seeing him at his brother Sam's funeral and deduces that Oikawa is the one who sent him the email that led him to the Dark Ocean. Oikawa goes on to tell Ken how he needs the spore inside of him in order to implant it into the other children. Oikawa manages to take a sample of Ken's spore and inserts it into the children. Whilst this is going on, the kids must stop Marine Devimon and Lady Devimon, whom are causing havoc in the city. Yoli and Cody are hesitant to battle, as they both know the inevitable outcome would be to destroy both of them. They do wind up having to fend off both foes in the end, and are left without a choice but to destroy both of them. Daemon stops the truck in his tracks, and Oikawa and Daemon reach an impasse where they cannot agree on who gets to keep Ken, as both require his spore. The Digidestined must fight Daemon, but even the combined forces of Imperialdramon Fighter Mode, Sylphimon and Shakuramon are not able to defeat it. The kids agree in sending Daemon to the Dark Ocean as a way to prevent it from coming back. Ken opens up the gateway to the Dark Ocean and the kids collectively help him. They are successful in sending Digimon and trapping it in the Dark World, where it vows to return. Oikawa reminds the kidnapped kids to meet where he requested and leaves them to be found by the police and their parents. The kids attempt to track down intel on Oikawa to learn more about who he is and his motives. Ken's father happened to work at the same company as Oikawa, whom worked under him, but went missing shortly before the kidnappings of those children. They then go to TK's mum to ask her to pull some strings from her reporter job and find out more information about the kids that were kidnapped. The Digidestins see one of the kidnapped kids abusing an animal, similar to Ken when he was under the full influence of the Dark Spore. Arukenimon and Mummymon are prepping their vehicle to take Oikawa where he needs to go. They soon come to find that Blackwall Greymon has entered the real world. The Digidestin realize they won't be able to remove the spores themselves. Whilst Oikawa, Arukenimon and Mummymon sleep, they are attacked by Blackwall Greymon. Whilst Tai and Kari visit Agumon and Gabumon in the digital world, who go on to tell them that when Azulongmon gave Genai one of its cores to pass on to the Digidestin to help them, it actually weakened the digital world's defenses, and with Blackwall Greymon's mere existence, the 100 spies it's made out of is corrupting the nature of the digital world. Agumon also cites how Zulongmon bestowed it additional power to be able to warp Digivolve into Wall Greymon to battle Blackwall Greymon if needed. Back in the real world, Blackwall Greymon deduces that Oikawa is his true creator, having been the one to have created Arukenimon. Blackwall Greymon laments how none of them belong in the digital world, as they are a product of the real world, but goes on to further state how Oikawa is a foreign object which belongs in neither, as Oikawa's existence disrupts the balance of both worlds and so must be destroyed. Oikawa is deeply offended by this, and as Blackwall Greymon goes on the attack, Agumon warp digivolves into Wall Greymon and protects Oikawa. Blackwall Greymon questions why they attacked him when they have a mutual enemy here, and Tai highlights how they need Oikawa in order to get the spores out of those kids. Blackwall Greymon disagrees with their strategy to attack him instead of Oikawa, and the two Wall Greymons battle. Whilst the remainder of the kids chase after Oikawa, Hyodramon Mega Digivolves to help defuse the battle between the Wall Greymons. In Periodramon Fighter Mode, Blackwall Greymon and Wall Greymon, now at altitude, all unleash their attacks. Oikawa does in fact manage to get away. Now having reverted back to their rookie forms, Agumon, Vmon and Wormmon have a heart-to-heart with Blackwall Greymon, whom asks why they didn't finish it off, disclosing to them its true desire all along, that he has been seeking out somebody or something to destroy it. The three Digimon explain to Blackwall Greymon that its life does have meaning, and meaning is simply not just found in moments of grandeur, but also in the simpler moments in life. Blackwall Greymon is receptive to this, but cites how he doesn't fully understand what they mean yet. It thanks the three of them and flies off, but not before agreeing that someday they may actually become friends. Armadillomon exposes itself in front of Cody's grandfather, whom is initially shocked to see it, but soon realizes that it's no mere animal. Cody is surprised that his grandfather somewhat has knowledge of the digital world. His grandfather goes on to explain how when Cody's father was around his age, he would speak of a digital world, spending hours playing the video game in which he would see this world through the screen. Cody later on bumps into Oikawa, who sees the family name Hida on Cody's bag. Oikawa calls out Cody's father's name and is left visibly shaken, much to Cody's shock. As a child, Oikawa was peculiar and introverted, whom no one seemed to understand. Oikawa met a boy by the name of Hiroki Hida, Cody's father. During their youth, Oikawa and Hida were able to tap into the digital world via a video game and became obsessed with it, spending hundreds of hours playing the game, in which provided them the means to communicate with the digital world. Cody's grandfather split the boys up and prevented Hida from playing the video game, as he felt Oikawa and it were a bad influence on his son. The two continued to remain close friends, both vowing that they will visit the digital world together. They remained close and worked towards their promise even in adulthood. Oikawa went on to work as a geneticist under Ken's father, whilst Hida became a police officer. During the 1995 incident caused by Greymon and Paramon's battle in Heightened View Terrace, Oikawa works with TK's mom to investigate the aftermath, realizing that a digital gate was located somewhere near in that area. Unfortunately, in 1999, Hida dies in active duty, leaving Oikawa completely devastated. Oikawa witnesses the original Digidestined destroy Myotismon and sees the digital world inverted in the sky. Oikawa begins to break down as Hida is not present to see their dream unfold in front of them. In this moment of weakness, Oikawa is approached by the dismembered spirit of Myotismon, who promises to take him to the digital world providing that he follows through with its plans, which Oikawa agrees to in desperation, allowing himself to be voluntarily possessed in order for he and his best friend's dream to be fully realized. It was Myotismon all along that was pulling the strings, using Oikawa as a means to rematerialize and be able to return to the digital world. The kids confront Oikawa, who has been able to harvest one of the flowers that has sprouted from the dark spore of one of the kidnapped kids. Blackwall Greymon immediately emerges, having sensed this dark energy, and vows to destroy Oikawa. Wall Greymon also arrives at the scene and warns Blackwall Greymon to be careful. Oikawa eggs Blackwall Greymon on, citing that he could use the control spies within it. Blackwall Greymon mocks him, in that he stands no chance in defeating him, and meanly made his two disciples in order to not be lonely. This strikes a nerve in Oikawa, and Black Ball Greymon embodies the learnings it took from Agumon, Vmon and Wormmon, finally having understood what they meant, going on to warn Oikawa that power will not bring him happiness, but will only make him more unhappy and lonely. Black Ball Greymon's words cut deep into the real Oikawa, who's locked inside, causing him great pain. Cody's grandfather arrives at the scene and introduces himself, and reminds Oikawa of his memories with his late son. Cody's grandfather cites he wants to be his friend and offers Oikawa the opportunity to talk with him about his late best friend and the memories they once shared. Oikawa momentarily regains control and walks towards Cody's grandfather. However, Mightismon takes over again and emits a beam of dark energy towards the elderly man, but Black Ball Greymon steps forward and protects him. The blow, however, proves fatal, leaving Black Ball Greymon with a large gaping hole in its abdomen. Black Ball Greymon realizes what has possessed Oikawa, and as a means to prevent Mightismon from entering the digital world again, it offers one final gift to its friends. The gift being its life, as a means to close the Heightened View Terrace digital gate. The kids and the Digimon are left grieving Black Ball Greymon's death, who went out on his own terms, intending to be a force of good for both worlds. Oikawa is unable to enter the digital world due to the gate being sealed by Black Ball Greymon. However, he harvests the remainder spores from the kidnapped children and is able to enter a dimension which appears to be the digital world. Oikawa rejoices and breaks down in joy, having finally made it to the digital world. But all is not as it seems, as it becomes clear that the world they are in is not the digital world but another dimension. A menacing figure begins to laugh, haunting Oikawa in how it used him and his pathetic dream as a means to rematerialize. Gatomon recognizes the voice of Mightismon. The doppelganger soon emerges from Oikawa's body and begins to use the harvested spores to transform into Malo Mightismon, a mega-level digivolution of Mightismon that is arguably more powerful than Venom Mightismon while still retaining its intellect and cunning. Malo Mightismon immediately places Arukenimon in its clutches and tortures it repeatedly, enjoying the fear it's inducing in Arukenimon's mind, finally laying the fatal blow and destroying Arukenimon, and then Mummymon swiftly thereafter. Watching what just transpired, the kids are crippled by fear, but Davis is unmoved and refuses to back down. This is where Davis truly shines as a leader, and he and XVmon take on Malo Mightismon on their own. Initially, XVmon is overpowered by Malo Mightismon, but the dimension that they are in allows Davis's courage and faith in XVmon to manifest in providing it extra power, enabling it to hurt Malo Mightismon. Realizing this, Malo Mightismon places the kids into an illusion in which shows them their deepest desires, but their partner Digimon all snap them out of it, and Davis comes by and gets all the kids out of their illusion. The kids, now enraged that Malo Mightismon used their desires as a way to trick them, are all now ready to fight. Vmon has been able to split into all his Digivolutions, and Ken asks how this is possible. Davis tells him that he simply wished for XVmon to be as strong as possible, and that was the result of his wish. The rest of the Digimon digivolve, all having split into their available forms, with Imperial Ultramon Dragon Mode and Fighter Mode attempting to finish Malo Mightismon off with the double positron laser attack. The blast yields so much force that Malo Mightismon is held in such ferocity that they break the dimensional wall and end up in the digital world. This turned out to be a massive mistake, as Malo Mightismon, now being in the digital world, is able to harness its full power, and now having exited the previous realm, the Digimon partners' additional Digivolution forms disappear, leaving only their main Digivolutions present. Malo Mightismon grows in size and incapacitates Imperial Ultramon, Sylphimon and Shakurumon. It begins to spread its dark energy across both worlds whilst proclaiming how it wishes to take over both the digital and real world. The original Digidestined are completely iced out of the battle, as the gate has been closed in Heightened View Terrace by Black Ball Greymon, and the next closest gate refuses to open. The Digidestined across the world band together and unite the Digivices in the sky to dissipate the darkness encompassing the world. Their Digimon partners come together in the digital world, ready to take a stand against Malo Mightismon. The Digidestined across the world support their Digimon, sending them power through their Digivices. The Digimon begin to emit a bright light, which blinds and causes Malo Mightismon pain, also allowing for the gate to open. Tai and the other Digidestined make their way to the battle. The kidnapped children who had dark spores instilled within them start to remember their own dreams, which they acknowledge they set aside, believing them to be silly. But Davis and the other Digidestined help make them realize that their dreams are not silly or useless. Having been encouraged, the kidnapped kids begin to believe in their dreams again, which causes Malo Mightismon's body to disintegrate, whilst those same children gain their own Digimon partners. With only Malo Mightismon's spirit remaining, the Digidestined point their Digivice towards Imperial Ultramon Fighter Mode, whom channels it into its Giga Crusher attack, finally destroying Malo Mightismon once and for all. Cody tries to help a weakened Oikawa into the digital world. Oikawa thanks Cody and voices his regret in not being optimistic, thus falling prey to Mightismon in the first place. A Digimon appears in front of Oikawa, which happens to be his own Digimon partner, which goes on to cite how it waited for him for what seemingly felt like forever. Cody pleads with Oikawa to take a few more steps and he will finally have entered the digital world, but Gennai highlights the damage Malo Mightismon caused to his body by being inside of him, which means that he may not be able to and has little time left. Oikawa observes the darkness and ruin caused to the digital world. He then transforms himself into energy and uses his life force to revitalize the digital world and promises to watch over and protect it forever. We then get a 25-year time jump in which TK is narrating. TK has become a novelist and writes stories of his adventures as a child. The rest of the 01 and 02 Digidestined have also grown up and have kids of their own. Tai and Agumon have become diplomats working on relations between the real and digital world. Matt and Sora are husband and wife. Matt and Gabumon become astronauts, whilst Sora and Biyomon become fashion designers. Joel becomes a doctor for the digital world, whilst Mimi along with Palmon host their own cooking show on TV. Izzy has become a researcher for the digital world. Kari has become a teacher. Yoli and Ken are married. Ken goes on to become a detective, whilst Cody goes on to become a defense attorney. And Davis has opened his own noodle cart business across the world, becoming a huge success globally. Their kids all run together with their Digimon partners, whilst TK narrates how the darkness will continue to resist the light, but so long as everyone continues to dream, darkness will be kept at bay. And that, folks, is the conclusion of Digimon Adventure 2, as well as the overall story which started back in 01. Now I have some overall thoughts on this series that I'd like to share, but before we get into it, if you'd like me to do a video on the next series called Digimon Tamers, you can let me know by smashing the like button on this video. Okay, so on to my overall thoughts. Firstly, I really do like the concepts the second series toyed with, but I can't help but feel they severely rushed the latter parts of the series. The detail I provided in this video regarding Ken and Oikawa's backstory was not really given as such in the show. The show simply provides excerpts of their backstory in which you have to sort of piece together yourself. It's all fragmented, and so it was hard for many viewers to keep up with the plot at times. The amount of loose ends in this show led to more questions being asked than answered. Kari's entire storyline with the Dark Ocean was completely dropped, with the Dark Ocean merely being brought up as a tool later on to trap an overwhelmingly powerful foe in Daemon. On that note, there's Daemon itself. Its motives were never disclosed as to what it wanted to do with the Dark Spore residing in Ken. It was simply banished and never heard from again. Now we do meet the same cast of characters again in Digimon Adventure Tri, which focuses on the original Digidestined now having grown up, in which at the end of Tri, Daemon is mentioned along with Diaboromon as the next phase of the enemy's plan. But Adventure Tri came out close to 2 decades after 02 ended, and although acts as a bridge, which covers a story between Mortismon's death and the 25-year time jump, it's obvious to see that this was not pre-planned by the writers from that many years ago. And also with 02 cementing such a specific ending for the characters, I do feel that the writing in Digimon Adventure Tri is constrained by this, as they have to accommodate for this ending, such as Matt and Sora inevitably getting together, which is still a huge contention point amongst the fandom, and coupled with Matt's 180 on his career path from wanting to be a musician to now being an astronaut by the end of 02. The writers of Tri had to tie in and reference somehow these plot threads throughout Tri in order to make 02's ending canon. Then there's the distraction that was the original Digidestined in 02. They're not always present in 02, but when they are, they absolutely steal the show in my opinion. Being a fan of the original, every time I see the OG cast, I can't help but wish we got more of them. Overall, Adventure 01 is a much stronger series, as although 02 is a direct continuation of the original series, it loses some of that magic that the original had, such as how in the first series the kids had to figure out a way to actually leave the digital world, which required further exploration, and we as viewers were learning about the digital world along with them. But in 02, the new kids have 2 seasoned vets in their group, as well as now older Digidestined to mentor them and provide them all the answers they need. That sense of exploration and fantasy of the digital world was sorely missing in 02. For me overall, 02 was the weakest out of the initial 6 anime series, from Adventure 01 up to Data Squad. But as I get older, I appreciate more and more the themes that it brought to the table, and honestly, it will be higher up in my list if it wasn't for the next series, Digimon Tamers, which explores many of the same themes, but really carries them through to fruition throughout the series duration. Tamers is an excellent series, and is also not a continuation of the previous 2, so it has a lot of freedom in playing with its ideas and concepts a lot more. On that note, I would love to hear your thoughts on Adventure 02 and its overall ending. If there is any other specific content you'd like me to cover, you can let me know via the comment section below. On that note, that's it for this one. Until the next time, this is Ray, signing off. Peace.